Kessler. My husband and I have lived in downtown Jersey City since 1982 and have owned our home in Harsimus Cove since 1983. I'm the founder and past president of the Harsimus Cove Association and a past president of the Downtown Coalition of Neighborhood Associations. I've supported preservation of the embankment for public use, including rail and trail, since the beginning of civic activity around this issue in 1998. This was even before the Embankment Coalition was formed. Now I support this ordinance because it will allow for the preservation of the Harsimus branch, the last unused rail corridor into the downtown. It's my understanding that an offer of financial assistance is not binding until the Surface Transportation Board sets the terms and the city gets to consider whether or not to accept those terms. This includes the price. To me, it seems obvious that the city should pursue this option. If it turns out that the city can't meet the terms set by the Surface Transportation Board, you can decide then not to go ahead with the financial assistance. Thank you.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
In 2005, I'm so sorry, Stephen Gucciardo, 302 Pavonia Avenue, Jersey City. In 2005, Conrail sold a rail line it had no right to sell, and the LLCs bought a rail line they had no right to buy. You can't sell a rail line without first legally abandoning it. Conrail and the LLCs ask that you discount or ignore this important fact. The City of Jersey City took all the appropriate steps to prepare to purchase the 6th Street Embankment. It designated it a municipal landmark. It applied for funding. It passed ordinances codifying its intentions, including exercising eminent domain if necessary. It formed a committee to assist in clarifying all steps necessary. All of this was done before Conrail chose to sell the rail line to the LLCs. Although prepared, the city could not purchase the 6th Street Embankment because Conrail did not legally abandon the rail line. Instead, they sold the rail line to the LLCs as if it were ordinary real estate.
I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we could, the ordinance is about an offer of financial assistance.
I'm almost there.
Okay.
I'll be quick.
If everyone does that, Stephen, we need people to come and speak and get right to the ordinance.
Some of the items I mentioned are actually listed in the ordinance, so I am speaking directly to issues that are in the whereases of the ordinance. It is not ordinary real estate. In 2006, the City of Jersey City asked the Federal Surface Transportation Board to determine the status of the rail line, and in 2007, the STB ruled that the Harsimus branch, including the 6th Street Embankment, is a line of rail subject to federal abandonment guidelines. Conrail and the LLC spent the next 8 years challenging the status of the line and STB's right to oversee its abandonment at great expense, pain and suffering to both the city and the public. While delaying in federal court, Conrail and the LLCs filed demolition permits before the Historic Preservation Commission and Zoning Board of Adjustments, which after months before those boards, the permits were denied. The LLCs also sued the City of Jersey City, the Embankment Preservation Coalition, Rails to Trails attorney, the City of Jersey City's attorneys, and other city and private servants of the public good. The Embankment Preservation Coalition has always supported the rail trail option. In 2012, the EPC supported and the city passed an ordinance contingent upon settlement between all parties that would have enabled rail, trail, open space, and development on the Harsimus branch. Unfortunately, this settlement never occurred. I have 2 more paragraphs. In 2013 and 2014, the federal courts definitively ruled the Harsimus branch is indeed a line of rail. Now we are finally back at STB, where the sale of the 6th Street Embankment should have been reviewed on day 1. And still, the STB's authority continues to be challenged by the LLCs. It is at STB that the city and the public can seek relief from the illegal sale, as well as pursue historic and environmental protection remedies. The most powerful form of relief is OFA, which is the ordinance before you, which enables the city to pursue these remedies. The Embankment Preservation Coalition supports OFA because it enables the city to acquire the Harsmas branch and to study suitable uses for it, including implementation of rail, trail, and open space as deemed appropriate. It is the strongest, most practical, and least expensive option. The city has overwhelming public support for this option, as you can see behind me, and for this option, we encourage you to vote yes.
Sorry.
You're young.
Eric Fleming, 245 5th Street. I represent Harsmas Cove Association. It's a neighborhood association, and Harsmas branch is our northernmost border. I moved to Harsmas Cove 2 years after I moved to Jersey City.
On the ordinance, your personal history is exciting.
4 years as neighborhood associate president. At no point have we not been in complete support of the embankment being turned into a park. Well, that's my end of my history lesson. I'm just going to read this and I'm going to sit down. Sorry, Bob. We're the neighborhood association in downtown Jersey City, and that has the embankment on our northern border. The HCA has been an enthusiastic and consistent supporter of the efforts to preserve the embankment for as long as I can remember. The offer of financial assistance is an excellent step toward preserving the embankment for public use, and for that we strongly encourage the City Council to pass this ordinance today. Thank you.
Felicia Palmer.
Your last name, Felicia?
Palmer, be like Paul, A-L-M-E-R. 296 6th Street, yes. Palmer.
Got it. Please begin.
Okay. Like I said, I live 6th Street. I live directly across from the embankment, and I am in total support of your adoption of this ordinance. I have been involved in the efforts to preserve the structure for mixed-use rail coexisting with trail since the beginning of the efforts. And I'm asking the council to vote yes for the offer of financial assistance tonight. Thank you.
Lucio.
Very good, Bobby. That's me.
How you doing, Valerio Lucio?
Valeria Lucha, 298 2nd Street. I've lived in Harsmas Cove for 16 years. During this time, one of the most exciting prospects has been the park of the embankment. The community has put a lot of effort and time in achieving this. And in these 16 years, we've seen the highlight in New York City be completed to splendid success.
You're too close and too fast.
Okay. And during this time, we've seen the Highline in New York City be completed to wonderful success, and now they're starting one in Queens as well. So we're waiting eagerly for our park. So please pass this so we can get a step further. Thank you.
I am on the board of the Heights Community Coalition and the Jersey City Reservoir Preservation Alliance. The boards and members of both of these organizations would like the support of the City Council for Ordinance 14103. Thank you.
Maureen Crowley, 263 5th Street. I'm going to comment very briefly on something probably nobody else is going to comment on, an aspect of the ordinance on planning. 40 years ago, the city had to pick up the pieces of rail bankruptcy, and we did so by focusing on residential commercial development on the waterfront. To my knowledge, in all these decades, planning for rail itself was done largely at a regional level by the county and by the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority, of course with city input and the railroad input. This ordinance, however, authorizes what I think for the first time is local planning studies for rail and other public uses of the Harsmas branch. And such local planning should spur a deeper understanding by the city and the public as to the contributions rail could make to sustainability and a diversified economy, not just based on development, when it is implemented with sensitivity to other public needs. It's good not to leave that sort of planning to others, especially to the railroads. Thank you. Please vote for the ordinance.
My name is Jenny Meyer. I live at 495 Monmouth Street. I just want to say that if the ordinance is passed successfully and if we can acquire the embankment via OFA, we can immediately begin work on a rail width trail, even as the city does its in-depth study of what the actual implementation of rail can and should be on the line. Rail trails are adjacent, they're actually adjacent to or within an active rail corridor. They're safe, common, and growing, and in a 2013 study, Rail Trails Conservancy located 161 rail trails in 41 states. That's a 260% increase since 2000. So this is something that people are doing all over the country, and we should do it too. And I fully support the OFA, and thank you.
Our
Too close.
sorry,
What is your name?
Kohler, Joan, Koehler.
Joan Cole.
Lifelong Jersey City resident, 304 and a half 8th Street. I'm going to read a brief message from the Board of Trustees of the Hamilton Park Neighborhood Association. The Board of Trustees of the Hamilton Park Neighborhood Association strongly urges the passage of City Ordinance 14-103. Our neighborhood association has long supported the efforts of the Embankment Preservation Coalition to protect this treasured tract of land from commercial development and expects to see it one day converted into a public open space this neighborhood so vitally needs. Thank you to Mayor Fulop and all the members of the City Council who have pledged to fulfill the same vision. We hope this will continue with unanimous passage of 14.103 and all subsequent official action required to turn this plan into a living, breathing, thriving railway and park. Sincerely, Chris Burt, Second Vice President. Thank you.
Peter Delman, 263 5th Street. I'm going to skip a bit and get right to the heart of the matter. Yes. This ordinance enables the city to efficiently pursue acquisition. Doing so is consistent with the actions of mayors and councils since at least 2003. Please vote yes. Thank you.
Dan Levin, 2600 Kennedy Boulevard. Hello, Council President Navarro and council members. We have almost an irreplaceable asset, the Harsmas stem that runs from through the cliffs and through downtown. To acquire it today would include eminent domain and almost unbelievable cost. It almost wouldn't be prohibitive. So a railway is an extraordinary, irreplaceable asset we need to look at and study and plan how we can use it as we move our future and go towards making our city more sustainable, more livable, and providing the jobs we need. This is one step forward to acquire this asset and determine how to best use it for our city. Thank you.
Good evening, Marlene Sandkamp, 91 Bright Street. Good evening, Council. Good evening, Mr. Byrne. I'm the current president of the Van Voorst Park Association. The VVPA has been a long time supporter of the public acquisition of the 6th Street embankment long before I was president. This offer of financial assistance is an important step in preserving this historic open space in our rapidly growing and hopefully the best mid-sized city in America. The VVPA hopes that you will vote yes on this ordinance. Thank you.
My name is Maury Thomas, M-O-R-Y. I live at 662 Palisade Avenue. I'm here tonight representing the M-O-R-Y.
Okay, not like Povich.
Not like Povich. Thomas. But if you'd like to talk about it, I can share a story. Okay, I'm here tonight to represent the Jersey City Parks Coalition, a member of 22 parks and open spaces across Jersey City, and in addition to that, the Washington Park Association of Hudson County up in the Heights area. As firm believers in protecting and preserving open spaces and improving transportation options in Jersey City, I support the city's offer for financial assistance to preserve the Harsmith Branch Rail Corridor for rail, trail, open space, and other public uses. Thank you.
G, 192 Washington Street. I agree with everything.
G-E-R-R-Y.
G-E-R-R-Y.
G-E-R-R-Y. B-E-A-K.
B-I-R-J-Y. TJ.
All right.
I guess I haven't been here enough times.
Out of practice, Gary.
I agree with everything that's been said. Urge you to vote in favor.
Mr. Horgan.
Good evening. My name is Daniel Horgan. I'm an attorney, and I represent the owners of the 6th Street Embankment. I am here again on behalf of the owners of the 6th Street Embankment with the somewhat unpleasant task, it appears, of asking you to do what is right in the face of an ordinance that is very wrong. You are considering an ordinance that requires the city to spend millions of dollars, 5.7 is what you're authorizing, and restore freight service to the Horseman's line in downtown Jersey City. You are about to authorize the city to make commitments to the Federal Surface Transportation Board to become a common carrier of freight by rail. You are willing to do this because you've been told that it's a cheap way to confiscate my client's property. So that a few people, most of them here tonight, in the most affluent ward of the city, can have another park. And you've been told that my clients aren't willing to work with the city to resolve how the embankment can be used to preserve. Finally, you've been told that you shouldn't listen to anything that I may say because there's litigation pending. Well, that's exactly why you should listen. Please listen for just a few more minutes. I will be fairly brief and very much to the point. It seems that you have listened to all the bad advice given you by the city. You have done nothing with the petition we filed back in May, and I was here in June and July on that. No one has been willing to have any discussion with us, and you held a council caucus, which, in all due respect to Mr. Byrne, we think violates the Open Public Meetings Act. Now you're about to act. The citizens of the city elected you to follow the law and to be transparent in what you do, and to do the right thing. Here's why this ordinance is more important than what you've been told. First, the ordinance isn't a good thing. It's directed specifically against my clients in an effort to rob them of their property. It's wrong for the government to single out anyone and use its power to take someone's property. You can condemn it for a park if you want, but you have to pay for it. You're not going to get it for $1, you're not going to get it for $3 million. That's not going to happen. Second, you don't have the permission of the state transportation officials to appropriate and spend this money. You're ignoring the law that requires you to get that permission. Can you really ask yourself and say that that's okay to ignore the law? Because you criticize any other city official that ignored the law. Third, your minds must be closed to what you're doing. They must be. Do freight trains make any sense on 6th Street to anyone here? Of course not. You didn't hear about freight trains tonight from all these people. But you're willing to have the city promise, and then only later to say, well, sorry, we really just wanted a park. We didn't mean that when we had 5.7 million in freight and common carrier obligations and so forth. And you're saying that to the federal government in a formal application authorized by each of you. Last, and maybe most important, we wrote to you and gave you a copy of our letter to Donna Mora and 2 other letters. Donna Mora is the city's chief financial officer. We showed you that you can't use bond money as a slush fund for lawyers, for private interest groups, some of these neighborhood groups are here tonight, or to violate our client's property or due process rights. We've told you, and I'm telling you again tonight, that the city has misrepresented itself in public documents and financial statements for bond offerings made in the municipal securities market. And what you're about to do with this ordinance is another securities fraud on the investing public because you can't issue tax-exempt bonds for a park and then use the money for litigation or to build a freight line for paying customers. Doesn't work. If you do this, you run the very real risk that the SEC, or even the state of New Jersey, will fine the city and ban it from issuing new bonds or refinancing the city's debt. We showed you the finance notice. This is the state of New Jersey that says this. This is the Securities and Exchange Commission. Okay, somebody's told you that's not right. We'll get to that. That could cost the city more than any park. The budget you adopted tonight indicates that this city is going to spend almost $60 million this year in debt service. It's going to spend $2.5 million on maintaining its parks.
Sir,
that would give you...
Can you speak to...
Yes, I am, because it's 5 eyewitness tomorrow. Because it's 24 times as much money for debt and for municipal finance, and if you lose that ability, quite frankly, then it's going to cost you much more than any park ever will, even buying this property. I would request that the letters to the city council be made part of the record, together with their enclosures, Mr. Byrne, if we could arrange to do that. And also, there is another letter, which I was given a copy of tonight by Mr. Griffin, who might be back with me, which was not on the communications, probably because it came in late. If that could be made part of the record too, if that's possible. I'd ask you not, Riffin, R-I-F-F.
Mr. Riffin.
Riffin, yeah. I am.
I have a copy of it.
I don't know if you have it or not, but my request is that you stop, you table this. If you think you have any disagreement with what I say, make sure that I'm wrong and you're right, because if you don't, it could cost the city dearly. Thank you.
My name is Eric Strohmeyer. I'm the Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of a company called CNJ Rail Corporation, based here in central New Jersey. Our firm currently manages the 20-mile-long short line in Colorado that runs between South Fork and just outside Crete. In 2009, our company was engaged in attempting to acquire another illegally abandoned line of railroad from Conrail in the southern portion of Jersey City. At that time, we became aware of the ongoing litigation regarding the Harsmas line, and after giving it some evaluation, we filed with the Surface Transportation Board a notice of intent to file an LFA. So it is not just the city that sought to do this, there was also private interest as well. Today I would like to speak to you for the first time to give you a little bit of some insight as to why would private rail industry have an interest in Jersey City. At a recent meeting, informational gathering meeting that was held here at City Hall, CNJ brought a number of potential shippers and receivers of goods that...
Sir, I know you said you're going to speak about how private rail industry has an interest in this. If you can tie it, private rail's interest to this particular ordinance, the offer of financial assistance. Okay?
Sure. The offer of financial assistance for this particular line, we've had numerous communications with your outside counsel, Mr. Charles Montaigne. We had provided, when he had indicated that he was looking to see whether or not there was substantive need for freight shipping options here in Jersey City. We responded to the request by bringing forth potential shippers who have the capability of utilizing the Harsmas line for general freight service. We are unaware at this point if that has ever really been discussed in a viable manner before the board or before the council. But we did want to let you know that it is there. I can't identify the name of the shippers due to protective order before the Surface Transportation Board, pending motion for protective order before the Surface Transportation Board. But I did want to let the City Council know that there are shippers and receivers of goods here in Jersey City that would be inclined to use the Harsmas line should you preserve it for freight service, which is precisely what the OFA process is to be used for. It is for the continuation of rail service. I want to applaud the City of Jersey City for having the vision to try to save the rail corridor in question before it did get abandoned and completely decimated. It has tremendous potential as a passenger corridor. I will not say that it doesn't have potential as a passenger corridor. It may have use as a freight corridor once again, and we would like you to be cognizant of the fact that shippers and receivers in the city could in fact need access to rail, and they could in fact use the Harsoness line. We are in support of your OFA, and we would like you to vote yes on this. But I have had Mr. Riffin, who's one of our senior shareholders, and I'd also like to identify Mr. Brian Niskola.
Please speak to the council. I think they know who they are.
Yeah, and Mr. Yushikov are all here from CNJ today. We wanted to make sure that you knew that we were very much in support of this. Mr. Riffin had some concerns that we also had, which is we'd like to discuss with you briefly. I'll defer to him. As you vote yes, we hope that you do, just be aware that there are certain liabilities that come along with voting yes. And with that, I'll turn the floor over to Mr. Riffin, and thank you for your time and consideration.
I'm James Riffin. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. You may wonder, why is someone in Baltimore appearing before you tonight? It's because of what it is you're attempting to do. I may or may not have some involvement in the ultimate outcome. Because I may have some involvement, I want to make sure that all of you fully understand what the OFA process is. It is not appropriate to use the OFA process to acquire land for a trail. It is not appropriate to use the OFA process to acquire land for a park. There is only one, and I emphasize one, appropriate use for the OFA process, and that is to foster continued freight rail service. If you acquire a line of railroad via the OFA process, and if you in fact use it for continued freight rail service, then it is legally possible to use a portion of whatever right-of-way you've acquired for other non-freight rail purposes, such as a trail or a park. So trails and parks are possible via the OFA process. But what you need to be acutely aware of is that if the Surface Transportation Board perceives that your primary purpose in acquiring the Harsoness line is to use it for a trail or a park or any other public purpose, including light rail, you will be in violation of the board's process. The board does not take kindly to that. There is a case, it's called Issaquah-Redmond. It's in Washington. I believe your outside counsel was involved in that case. In that case, a line of a railroad was acquired via the OFA process. It turned out, after the fact, it was determined that the reason it was acquired was not to provide continued freight rail service. It was to use it for other than freight rail purposes. The board reopened the proceeding and ordered the reconveyance of that line of railroad back to the railroad. The same can happen in this case. Those are my cautions. I've given you a 10-page letter. It outlines what the OFA process is.
Where did you send this letter, sir?
I sent it to the city council's chambers UPS tells me it arrived at 11:38 a.m. this morning. I sent 15 copies.
Well, Mr. Horgan's asking me to add it to the record, but he didn't send it to me as the clerk.
I didn't specifically ask that a copy be delivered to the clerk.
I've been asked to add something to the record that I never got custody of.
Would you like a copy? May I hand you a copy right now? I have plenty of copies. Thank you.
With all this litigation going on, maybe this should be.
We're in the middle of a public hearing. Please continue, Mr. Griffin.
I might add for all the other persons in the audience, particularly those who appeared before you in support, if they would like a copy of what I just handed to the clerk. I have extra copies with me, and after I've finished and concluded, if they ask me for a copy, I will provide them with a copy.
You can conclude your remarks.
I do support your efforts to preserve this rail corridor. I support all efforts to preserve all rail corridors. Once they're lost, it's almost impossible to retrieve them. Approving this ordinance merely authorizes the city to submit an OFA. It does not mean that an OFA will in fact be submitted, nor does it mean that you will in fact acquire this line via the OFA. As I believe it was the first speaker pointed out, it's expected the city will ask the board to set terms and conditions. Once the board sets terms and conditions, the city then has a period of time, typically 10 days, within which to decide whether or not it wishes to acquire the line under those terms and conditions. So all you're doing tonight is permitting the process to move forward. That's a good. I'm not in total agreement with Mr. Horgan regarding the use of the funds, prospective use of your funds, and his argument that you may be in violation of some SEC regulations. I'm not a bond person. I can't address that. I might also point out, pursuant to the board's regulations, anyone can submit an OFA. Anyone. If more than one OFA is submitted, the railroad, Conrail, has the absolute right to pick whichever offer it chooses to pick. It doesn't have to be the best offer. It's whichever person they choose to deal with. If the city is the only offeror and terms and conditions are set, the city has the absolute right to acquire whatever they've offered to acquire, providing they meet those terms and conditions. If there's another offeror, the railroad determines who they're going to deal with. In this particular case, if the LLCs were to submit their own OFA, Conrail could pick the LLC's OFA as opposed to the city's. So just submitting it doesn't guarantee that you will get what you are attempting to acquire. Nor is there any certainty at this point in time that you can acquire what you want under terms and conditions that you're willing to live with. As I point out in my letter, if a rail service is in fact instituted, and it needs to be, you'll have a considerable amount of truck traffic on your streets. And you need to figure out how you're going to deal with that. In my very last footnote, I've offered you a suggestion. Several weeks ago, Mr. Steve Hyman appeared before you. He's the putative owner of the LLCs. I say putative because they're actually in his wife's name. During his short conversation with you, he made an offer. He suggested you should have an informal get-together and see if you can reach some sort of common ground, settle the controversy. I've been advocating that for nearly a year now. I continue to advocate it. If you want certainty, you need to reach a settlement. Now, I'm aware.
Sir, discussion of settlements are not part of the...
I believe it does, because it's the solution.
Is that? Yeah, you have to speak on the ordinance.
In conclusion, just before I conclude, Mr. Corrigan made a suggestion, and it struck me as a pretty good suggestion. It strikes me you being rushed into making a decision without being fully informed. I have no idea what you know and what you don't know. I know Council, Mr. Montaigne, was here, and he's had discussions with you. I have no idea what he told you. I have no idea what he did not tell you. But Mr. Horgan made the suggestion you might consider tabling your vote on this ordinance for a period of time in order to investigate, acquire more information. If you have any unanswered questions, I think that's a good suggestion. With that, at some point in time, whenever you can decide that it's appropriate, I do believe you should vote to authorize the OFA. I'm a firm believer in making informed decisions. If you are fully informed, then you can make the decision, but you need to be fully informed. Thank you very much for your time. If you